Now we are moving into a concrete example. This study was done by Storebrand Asset Management. It's a Norwegian financial service provider with more than 1,000 billion Norwegian crowns of assets under management. I think that's around 100 billion euros, something like that. And they also used Encore tool and also the WWF water risk filter. But the whole assessment was done by Just Impact. It's an organization that does specialized on these assessments. And the CEO is Pavan Sukhdev, who was leading the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity, the TEEP initiative. And he clearly saw the need for these kind of analysis because he came also from the banking sector. He used to be in Deutsche Bank, then was leading this UNEP initiative, and has been always then thriving for decision useful information on nature, on biodiversity, and integrating this into the decision making of financial institutions, but also companies. So they last week they published this report. Unfortunately, this is poor quality. I don't know, I had better quality earlier. Maybe with the presentation mode it changes a bit. So for this asset manager, they all, in this report they outline what are the main sources of risk, what are then the economic risks and the financial risks involved. So this can be also a nice overview to see how the asset manager is looking at these different risk types. But I want to go more into the analysis they did. So based on the TNFD framework and also some of the SFDR guidance on metrics, they looked into some aspects of these. And one is the biodiversity footprint in terms of how many square meters of land is being used per US dollar million invested. And they did a comparison to a benchmark. So the Nordics 100 is 100 assets on average for the Nordics countries were coming from the asset manager. And the benchmark is the Nature Action 100. These are companies that are within the Nature Action network, and where they said, okay, these companies that are active in the Nature Action 100, they are our benchmark to which we are comparing our average 100 sector, 100 asset investment portfolio to get an idea where the investments of Storebrand are comparing with this benchmark. And what one can see is that overall this footprint has first gone up, then going down, and now going up again. So it seems like some investments decisions are happening that first it went down and now is increasing again. Overall, the biodiversity footprint of Nordics 100, so the kind of like these assets under management by Storebrand are somewhat lower in the biodiversity footprint, 40% lower than the benchmark. And then also this natural capital impact in terms of US dollar impact per million US dollar, meaning how a natural ecosystem or how ecosystems are negatively impacted, expressed also in monetary terms. You remember this impact assessment and valuation slides I had depicting on how impacts can be monetized and valued. They have done this for in this assessment as well. And here the impact per million US dollar invested is around close to $30,000 for the benchmark, and somewhat lower, a bit lower than 25,000 for the Nordics 100. So that's the natural capital impact per million invested. And then this is the breakdown per impact driver. So greenhouse gas emissions impacts seem to be considerably higher for the Nordics 100, whereas the land use impact is considerably higher for the benchmark. And then following those two, so greenhouse gas emission, land use are the highest, and then following like nitrogen oxides, nitrogen pollutants, phosphorus pollutants, sulfur, waste generation, water consumption. Again, water consumption is again a bit higher for the benchmark. And yeah, there seems to be that the average benchmark portfolio has higher land use impact than the Nordics 100 portfolio, with considerably significant differences there. And then this is basically the encore analysis, having here the different dependencies on ecosystem services on the top, and then here the different sectors in the portfolio and their priorities in terms of, or their materiality. So it seems manufacturing is several very high, has several very high dependencies, and transport and storage as well. Very low, quite dominating also, but you can see that this very high are popping up, and then this helps you in your materiality assessment to say like, okay, where should I look first? Where are my highest dependencies? Then also the question of those assets, whether they are near protected areas or indigenous territories. So they could also locate these assets, and yeah, in particular for construction of railways, underground railways, they rank high. This sector ranks highest when it comes to the closeness to protected areas. And then others are significantly lower. So in these railway sites, it's 293, and then the next level with the manufacturing and so on, it's only 26. Sorry, it's the exposed assets is 157, and then 108 followed by that. So the gap is quite significant between the first and the second. So definitely now the company could look into where are construction sites and the railways that have this close link to protected areas, and maybe they can focus strategies on mitigation these impacts in this sector in particular. And then also sectors and assets of those sectors near indigenous communities. They could also assess that. And yeah, for air transport, it apparently is the highest exposed assets to indigenous communities. Then service activities related to water transport, and then manufacturing, leasing, yeah, and other sectors. And they could also highlight some groups of indigenous communities that are affected. So apparently there are also geospatial data sets and so on that can highlight where indigenous territories are located, who are the main indigenous communities in that areas, and then if you overlay that with your assets, you can generate that information as well. And then the risk exposure shows that clearly manufacturing sectors are really sticking out, and they're 52% or around 50%, or half of the, most of the sites there in the manufacturing sector are exposed to risks related to nature. Here in particular water stress, droughts, coastal floods, temperature changes, extreme heat wave, also water demand, also quite a few related to water. And then second most around transport and storage, and then construction. So these are the main three categories where it seems logic to focus on when it comes to managing nature risks for this asset manager. This is basically giving you an overview how what we discussed today has been implemented now into this assessment of the store brand asset manager. And my question is, what is your opinion? Does this analysis help the company to take more sustainable decisions? If more companies would do such assessments, would it halt global biodiversity loss? So basically, what do you think follows from these kind of assessments in terms of decision making and strategies and transition plans? Do you think, like, what kind of impacts do you expect from these kind of assessments?
More than an answer, I have another question, but which has been the reaction by stakeholders generally? I mean, like, the audience was happy with this report, or was like, no many wow effect?
No, it was well perceived at the European Business and Nature Summit last week. It was published on the same day of the opening day of that summit. And so I think in general that has been seen as the right step forward. I mean, they don't have to publish this. This is completely voluntary that they publish a report like this. So.
My instinctive reaction would be that this helps them to steer their future activities. Like, it's relatively clear that they need to look at their transport systems, transport and storage. And in manufacturing, maybe there's room. So in the sense of, does it help make more sustainable decisions? I think so. But then does it hold biodiversity loss or actually go into net positive of some kind? I don't think that's in that one. Would be just first instinctive response.
Indeed, I had another question related to the autonomous population. Is this something that has been assessed through the WWF tool, or was it something else?
I'm not sure if it's in the tool, but it's definitely addressed also under the TNFD framework, where it explicitly says you should look also into stakeholder engagement and also engagement with indigenous and local communities. But I know that these data sets are available, so I could imagine I would have to look up if it's also already included in the WWF risk filter. But for this report, they didn't use the WWF biodiversity risk filter, they used the water risk filter from WWF. So it seems that this data on the indigenous communities is also like just impact is using those in their approaches. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, maybe going back to the point I made earlier, I think this assessment definitely helps to quantify things that we often struggle to quantify, and hence they can really help to inform our predictive models and hence be able to make more informed investment decisions. So it would really, yeah, I think something like this would really help us. If we were to integrate it as part of our credit systems, I know that we're already involved in the ENCO tool. I think Julie will touch on that tomorrow, and even the WWF one, but I'm not sure if it's integrated into our credit models at this stage. It's not widely integrated across the bank, but I see value from your training today, I really see value in how it can really assist us in our appraisal processes. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I can give a comment on the second question. I believe that, I mean, if many companies go ahead with such kind of assessment, till they will not halt the biodiversity loss, because I believe they do all different activities, they do all different evaluations. So in my opinion, that's more on a governmental side. So if governments put on some programs which stops company in doing some certain activities that affect biodiversity, that could have some tangible results. Otherwise, to leave freedom to companies, banks, and other actors in carrying out their own programs and hoping that at some point they will just stop on an average level, I believe that won't happen.
Yeah, and also with moving towards nature positive, bending the curve, so to say, it's also generally understood that it's not really possible to do that on a company level, because you always have with your operations some impacts and you can offset them, but to have your own operations overall being nature positive is very difficult. But it can help to contribute to goals that are set at the global level to become nature positive, to reverse the loss of nature. So it's also more discussed on that level, that nature positive developments and targets should be understood as a more societal goal, and companies can minimize or reduce and mitigate impacts and offset maybe to a certain extent, but that the whole company as such, as an operation, becomes nature positive is maybe a bit more challenging. Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much. Johannes, big applause. Great. And looking around, and it was really a long first day, right? Still a lot of you have jet lagged, so I think we stop it for now. I think it was a very long day. Yeah, so what we have heard today, I think key messages are like, okay, we have to deal with the risks, we have to identify the risks, and I think this was everything what we have discussed about today. So tomorrow the question will be, what do we do now? I think this is like also a bit related to the question we just put on the wall. And tomorrow we look at different solutions. So we're looking at the business case for biodiversity, because always, and I think we heard it also already today. I think was it you, right? You were asking about what is the business case. Sandrine, I think you remembered. I think you mentioned it earlier today. So we'll talk about the business case. First, we will look at nature-based solutions. Then we also see how, by two examples from KfW and also DBSA, how to streamline also biodiversity within the DFI. And then in the afternoon, we will have then a look at the business cases, where we have on the one hand the intervention again by Johannes, as well as then one colleague also joining us online from UNIP-FI. So we're very much looking forward to tomorrow, but now we stop here, have a rest, a well-deserved rest, and then see you tomorrow morning. I think we start at 9 sharp. So yeah, looking forward to see you tomorrow. Thank you.